I'm here at CXC Simulations with Chris Considine for their open house, and this is 4 or 5 years since we last spoke to Chris. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well.
First question, what's the reason for having an open house?
Oh, well, we just moved into a new facility. We're launching a couple of new sub-products, but mainly the new facility to show everybody where they're made, how the development process works, let all the teams and drivers and customers really see how we do it.
Right, and for those of you out there who don't know, I actually used to work at CXC, and I am just sitting here blown away as we sit here in their showroom because we used to build these sims in literally a shed.
Yeah, a shed in my backyard.
So this is quite an evolution for the company.
Yeah, you were in a position to see the very beginning of the company and how we've grown from start to finish.
And now we've kind of grown together because this kind of goes back to the beginning of Inside Sim Racing. I mean, we kind of,
That's right.
I remember we were new, you were kind of new, and it just kind of, anyway, I'm blown away by what you guys have going on here. So right behind us here, we have the CXC Motion Sim, the Motion Pro 2. Let's start with the sim. That's the bread and butter here. How has it evolved since we last covered it 4 or 5 years ago? I mean, it might be more than you can explain real shortly.
Yeah, the devil's in the details. Well, we designed the Motion Pro 2 from the very beginning to be a modular product. So we wanted our customers to have a product that they could invest in and not have to completely replace every time a new piece of technology came out. So it's designed in the sense that you can add wheel, pedals, new PC, new screens, all kind of a la carte as you go along. So because of that, we're still using the same core ideas, and we've just evolved along that line, which is why we still make the Motion Pro 2. It's just the Motion Pro 2 V8.
Right. Now, thinking back 4 or 5 years ago, it still looks similar at first glance. Is there a lot of carryover, or is pretty much everything gone through some kind of redesign?
In one way, shape, or form, everything has been redone.
Right.
A little bit here, there, all along the lines. But that being said, I have customers who have chassis number 3, 4 that are up to date.
Right.
And
that gets back to the modular thing that you were talking about.
Exactly.
Okay.
Visually, they look similar, as these look similar to the original designs.
Right.
But the core technologies inside have evolved as technology has evolved.
Okay. Now, when you first started, and I think back years ago, I mean, there weren't a lot of motion sims that were available to just any sim racer or any consumer. Now, if you really do some looking, you can find some other sim companies out there if you really dig. What do you think really differentiates CXC from the other companies out there?
Well, as I said before, the devil is in the details. We exhaustively test, design, test again, and we remanufacture things. I mean, there is no one magic bullet, but without being up close to one of our simulators, it's really hard to convey the level of detail that we go into, and that it is, I would say, a no compromise simulator.
Okay, that's fair to say. Now behind you, you have a selection of wheels. I think back again in time. I'm looking at this. I'm sort of blown away here as I do the interview because I remember what they were and what they are now. You didn't have a selection of wheels. How does that come about? And are you making these? What's the process there?
We manufacture them here. It came from a customer need. They wanted one simulator to do many things. And when you want to be as accurate as possible with your simulation, that means changing a wheel. A GT style wheel isn't really applicable to an open wheel car.
Right.
A kart steering wheel is necessary for karting.
Right.
A vintage wheel is necessary for vintage racing. And it's not just because of the way it looks, but the way it feels, the weight, the shape, the types of buttons and paddles and all sorts of little gizmos that are added to it, totally changes the way the simulator feels.
Right.
And we've taken that idea and expanded upon it and added our flight add-on package as well.
Oh, very cool.
So that allows our Motion Pro 2 simulator that you're driving in to be converted to a flight simulator in less than 2 minutes with 1 tool and 2 plugs.
Right. So it's just changing out a wheel for the flight stick and then running whatever appropriate software?
You simply pull the steering wheel off, leave it off,
right,
and you add the flight stick, which is a center mount fighter flight stick, and a set of throttles on the side, and now you're flying.
Wow, wow. So how long does it take from start to finish to make one of these sims?
Well, they're still very much handmade and built to order, and they're made in Southern California. So they take about 8 to 10 weeks to build from order to ship date.
Right.
And we ship them internationally. In fact, we have a simulator on every single continent except for Antarctica.
Wow. Wow, that's impressive. That's very impressive. Very cool stuff. Okay, so let's get back to the facility here. Again, thinking back to the days of the shed. I mean, we were in maybe a 100 square foot shed.
If that.
And now we're in this giant polished floor building.
Yeah.
What was the need? I mean, what's the main need for that difference in size?
Well, the main need was first, we started rapidly outgrowing our last facility, which was in Marina del Rey. And that was a 2,000 square foot facility. We just couldn't keep up with the demand. We couldn't build enough simulators at a time. We couldn't stock enough material. We couldn't really develop some complex systems there. We didn't have a lab or any of that sort of stuff. So we needed to move into a much bigger facility. So here we are in our new facility. It's almost 11,000 square feet.
Wow.
We have a nearly 7,000 square foot production facility alone. We have a computer and development lab. We have a machine room. We have plenty of office space. We have this big, beautiful showroom. We have a conference room.
Right.
You know, we can really make it a destination for our customers. Much like Bugatti, it loves to invite their customers to watch their cars being built.
Right.
We encourage our customers to come see their simulator, you know,
Very
come
cool.
into existence.
Yeah, yeah,
You
and
know?
see it out there in the assembly line.
Exactly.
And I noticed they'd have their name on it because I was looking at the ones going through the name. They
Definitely.
already know where they're going.
And you know, when customers can see inside and see, you know, the wire harnesses and all the little tiny details, they can really understand the process and the reason for doing all of these things.
Right.
And you can really geek out over the details.
Well, and even myself, I mean, I kind of look at it in the differences from when we were building them originally and how they've evolved, and again, every aspect, and you can tell it through the manufacturing process. So I got some good time in the Motion Pro 2 sim. I also noticed and got some time in the Champ Car simulator that you have assembled here. How did that come to be? What is that car? Is that a real Champ car?
Yes, it is actually a real 2006 Lola Champ car. It raced a lot. It raced at Long Beach. It raced in the whole Champ Car series. Basically, what it is, you know, we've always been telling customers, you know, especially with our new facility, we have the capability of building anything they can imagine. And that started out as being modified versions of the Motion Pro 2. For example, Cadillac had us build their simulators for their trade show circuit. And we modified little bits and pieces of that to make it more Cadillac and brand centric. You know, there's a whole surround that goes around the simulator. They have a custom steering wheel and seat, but we could really do so much more.
Right.
And luckily we had a client that came along that said, we'd like to turn this Champ car into a simulator. They purchased it secondhand. It was a roller without a motor, but it had a motor spacer in it. And it was basically a show car and a static display, and it wasn't really that exciting. You know, it was cool to look at, but it was, you know, a 5-minute thing.
Right.
So they came to us and they said, okay, well, we have a few needs. One, we want to make it exciting for our customers. We want to be able to have anyone be able to get in and out of it. That's really hard to do with a Champ car.
Yeah, they're kind of low to the ground and tough to get in.
Yeah, exactly. We want to not damage it, so because it is a historical piece, so no drilling new holes, no crazy things like that, in case it needs to be converted back to a race car.
So all of that was done, and it hasn't harmed the car in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
So you could turn that right back into a race car if you wanted to.
That's amazing. Now, that didn't have motion in it. I mean, I kind of think of you and CXC as a motion sim company.
Well, for them, the motion part wasn't really a big need, and to make a proper motion simulator out of that would have taken a huge engineering feat, which is we're fully capable of, but the budget just wasn't there to make that a motion simulator. So we kind of made the best, you know, with what we had. And for them, they really wanted a hyper realistic simulator on a level that no one's ever done before. But yet have people be able to get in and out of it very easily. And
I'll just say that was my favorite simulator that I've ever driven. No offense to Motion Pro, but it was being in a real Champ car at the same time.
There's something about being in that seating position and being in the real race car and imagining what that car was like.
Or who's been in it before me.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about people and people before me. I don't really want you to divulge your client list, but I'm assuming that most of your clients are VIP, important people, maybe even race people. let's talk about maybe some of the more exciting people that you've dealt with over the years.
Well, I'm bound by a lot of non-disclosures, especially on the
ones
professional
you can
side.
talk about.
But yeah, I mean, we've had, people like Lewis Hamilton, Patrick Long, Justin Wilson. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. That use our simulators for training.
Right.
So everyone from that to the corporate side. With some of our customers range from the higher ups at major companies like Apple, Intel.
Right.
To royalty even.
Right. That's got to be a lot of fun when you get to meet the face of these people when you're doing the installs. Very cool. Well, let's look towards the future. I mean, you've got that static IndyCar or Champ Car chassis. Is that a focus or a direction for the company? Are you guys all about motion? Or are you all about, that's a custom build, really?
It is. That's more of our Skunkworks division, as we call it, and that's the kind of we can build anything you like.
Right.
We'll always have the production side, and that is very much our bread and butter. But from an engineering standpoint, and as an engineer, those kind of projects are very interesting to work on, and they definitely stimulate you.
Right.
So yeah, we've since we built the Champ Car, we've seen a lot of interest in that type of simulator. So it looks like we'll be building a lot more of those types of sims in the future, as well as delving into some military on that side as well.
Wow. Okay, so that's obviously going to be non-commercial. That's gonna be,
very much so.
Okay, now let's talk more future. I mean, the sim has evolved a lot over the years.
Yep.
What do you see? Where do you think you'll be in 3 to 4 or 5 more years?
In that time frame, I see the Skunkworks division really growing and becoming a major part. I think that the Motion Pro 2 and its derivatives will continue on, and then maybe around that time we'll start looking about making much higher volume simulators.
Right.
So we'll probably go down the line and try and make much more accessible simulators.
Okay. Now you just said accessible. Let's kind of go in that direction. You just launched your new website, so you're still CXCSimulations.com.
Yep.
But a brand new website. I noticed you did have 3 purchase points on the website.
Yeah.
Is that your entire lineup, or is that just sort of a baseline?
Well, the Motion Pro 2 is designed much like a car. So you start with a base model, and then you just add the options that you want from there. So those 3 packages represent kind of suggested option packages.
Okay.
So you can start from the base model and go all the way up.
Right.
So those are just kind of like, well, if you want to be a racer, this is the package I would start with, and it still has you go through the options list.
Right. But all of them end up being fully turnkey systems. I
Yes.
mean, you're not needing anything else.
From start to finish, they are turnkey. All we need is power and internet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about research and development a little bit. Most of this is not off the shelf. I mean, I can't just run out and buy this stuff.
Yeah.
How do you guys, acquire it? How do you figure out what works together? How do you build it? I mean, we kind of played, I saw some of your research and development stuff in your 3D printer. So what's the process there? I mean, if you're trying to figure out how to institute something into this rig.
It starts with a need. Either a client need or a production need or something that we see that might be a new area that we can delve into. From there, we develop a concept, usually in 3D CAD, and then we print it or make prototypes, and then we test it, and then we remake it, then we test it and remake it, and the process goes on and on and on until we boil down to a product that is not only hyper realistic, but easy to manufacture for us, and very easy to support and bulletproof. A lot of our simulators see commercial use, so they have to be built like tanks.
Sure, absolutely. Very cool. All right, well, Chris, I'm very excited about the future of CXC. It's amazing how much you've grown in relatively short time, and I'm very impressed, and thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.